Hi, thanks for joining us today. I'm going to be making a Indian chickpea and sweet potato curry. I've made several different versions of this in the past. I think I even did a version of this for another Cooking Together live, but this one is a little bit spicier, and I'd say a little bit more Indian style than the other chickpea curry that I've made. And I just realized today when I was putting together the ingredients that tomorrow is National Bean Day. It's like a National Bean Celebration Day. So we are just in time for this because we've got our chickpeas in this dish. And so if you're not making this with me today, maybe you can make it tomorrow to celebrate Bean Day. I'm going to start heating up my pan, and then we can talk about the ingredients that you'll need. One second here. There we go. Everything was not quite in place there. I like to heat up the pan first. This is a cast iron, so it takes a little while to heat up. And so what we're going to do is start out by dicing the onion or maybe slicing it into bite-sized strips. I think that's what I'm going to do today. And then after that, we're going to peel and grate some garlic and ginger. Grating it gives it a really nice texture. It brings out all the oils and it helps incorporate it into the dish really well, more than dicing or mincing. So that's what we're going to do with the ginger and garlic. And then we're going to take a serrano pepper. You could also use a red chili, like a really hot Thai chili if you want it very, very spicy, or you could use a jalapeno. Or you could use a large pinch of red pepper flakes if you don't have a fresh one. And then let me tell you about the spices that we've got. Bring my sweet potato over also. So these are all optional. The ones that you really don't want to miss out on are garlic and ginger. And I would say turmeric and cumin. So if you've got ginger, garlic, turmeric, and cumin, you're good to go. But if you want to make it a little bit extra flavorful and a little bit more spicy, you can add some coriander, fenugreek, and mustard seeds. That'll just kind of flavor it in a different way. But like I said, if you've got garlic, ginger, maybe a pepper, turmeric, and cumin, you're really good to go. I've also got some nice curry leaves here that you can get at an Indian market, or maybe you grow your own at your home. If you don't have curry leaves, then you can use bay leaves. And I will be posting the recipe for this later today. I also on the Facebook page put the ingredients in case you wanted to cook with me, if you want to refer to that. Let's see, we've also got some tomato puree, couple tablespoons. We've got some sea salt. And then a couple of our main ingredients are chickpeas. These are already cooked, about 1.5 to 2 cups or 1 can drained. And then I've got a large sweet potato, or you could use 2 small ones. And so let's start prepping the onion. It's going to take a little bit of time to saute the onion to make it really flavorful. And so I want to get that started first. I cut the bottom and top off of the onion, and now I'm going to save those little pieces to put in my vegetable stock later today when I make one. I always like to freeze the bits of carrot, onions, celery, winter squash, things like that to use for stock later. It's great to not have to waste any of the vegetable. Okay, so if I want to do a sliced onion, I usually just slice along the ridges like this. But I think what I'm going to do is actually slice it in half first, and then I'm going to attempt to do this kind of radial cut going along the ridges. I'm moving it just a hair each cut, each slice, and now I'm going to end up with nice little slices. I might have to do these individually here. Safety first, so if you're concerned about having the perfect cut, don't worry about that. You want to make sure that you're being safe and that you're not going to cut your fingers. So if you have a different way of doing this that you like, because it feels safer, do you see I'm curling my fingers under? I'm going to take each one of these by themselves. That will be safer. Curling my fingers under, and I'm have my wrist or the kind of heel of my hand right on the board, so I get a lot of stability and leverage there. A lot of people forget to do that and they have their hand up here, but you really need to have it on the board. Okay, so we're just about done with our onions. These are going to saute for a good 10 minutes while we're prepping all of the other ingredients. You want to make sure you have enough oil in the pan that, you know, you're going to be adding chickpeas and sweet potato later, which need a bit of oil to moisten them up. They tend to be kind of dry. And you also don't want the onions to burn. You want them to saute down really nicely. And we're going to be adding some of the spices in a little bit. So don't skimp too much on the oil. I probably put about a tablespoon and a half. You might need a little bit more later. I used olive oil, but you could also use a coconut oil or some other high quality vegetable oil that you like. And I'll keep my eye on this from time to time. I may need to stir it. And I'm not going to add salt to it quite yet, because in Indian cooking sometimes you want to brown the onions or caramelize them a little bit. If you add the salt right now, it's going to interfere with that process. So now I've got this serrano pepper that I took the stem off, and now I'm de-seeding it. I like to do that with a spoon, so I'm not touching the seeds too much with my hands. Hey, Izzy.
Hello.
Izzy's back to school online today for the first day in almost 2 months. Amazing. How does it feel to be back at school? Is it kind of nice?
Yeah, it's nice.
Nice to have some structure.
Yeah.
Would you like to help, like peel the sweet potato or something? Or peel the garlic? Anyone? Or why don't you peel that into here? Anytime you can get help in the kitchen is a good thing. So going along with National Bean Day tomorrow, I would love to investigate that a little bit and see how that came about. But I think I can go ahead and put these peppers in right now too. So National Bean Day, there is a bean cookbook that I believe came out last year that's really excellent. I will post it in the comments, a link to it, because I can't remember the title, but it's been a bestseller. I was wondering how it was going to go when that book first came out, because there's such a big paleo and keto movement right now where people are eliminating beans from their diet, but I am a big proponent of beans because I think they're a really good source of plant-based protein and carbohydrates all in one package. And if you cook them properly, you're not going to get the issues with lectins and the components that are hard to digest in beans. as long as you make them from scratch, like we have here, you don't have to deal with any of those issues. But anyway, I've got a lot of recipes on my recipe blog, cookloveheal.com, that teach you how to make beans in the most digestible way, and they taste better when they're more digestible too. Thanks, Izzy. It's a big help. So I'm just peeling these cloves of garlic, and I don't want to smash them too much. I was actually smashing them a little bit more than I needed to because I'm intending to grate these, and I probably would have been somewhat skeptical of grating the garlic and ginger if I haven't tried it both ways many times, either mincing with a knife or chopping or doing it this way. And I have to tell you, grating the garlic and ginger makes a big difference. It's okay if you get a little bit of browning. You just don't want them to burn. You don't want the onions to burn. And keep going a little bit here. I think Izzy must be making her own lunch back there. Maybe she could do a little class on the side. I think she's getting some homemade sourdough bread from our friend. He's RP, who makes really excellent sourdough bread. Okay, so you've got the garlic. You can see how juicy it is. I'm going to put that in with the onions shortly. And then I can show you a little tip on peeling the ginger. I like to use a spoon that has a sharp edge, kind of thin, sharp edge. Or you could use a vegetable peeler, but I feel like there's less waste doing it this way. And you'll need, I use 3 cloves of garlic, and you'll need about maybe like a thumb-sized piece of ginger. So I'm gonna cut that piece off and do the same thing with this ginger. And I might need to turn this down just a hair. So grate up the ginger. And again, it's going to get very juicy compared to if you mince it or chop it. Much juicier. And those little threads I'm going to remove because I've got enough here and those would not be very juicy. Okay, so check that out. I'm going to put the garlic and ginger in. Maybe with a little bit more oil so that we don't burn anything. Clean up my workstation here, and then I'll give that a stir. Okay. So I will add just maybe a half tablespoon more olive oil. You could also dice the onions if you want them to be smaller, but I wanted to try it this time with sliced onions. Just see how that changes the texture. Okay. Something special you can do if you have a mortar and pestle. If you're using fenugreek seeds, you can try to crush them. These I toasted right before class so they'd have a little more flavor. Fenugreek has a very unique flavor. I don't think it really smells like anything else. It almost has a caramel kind of scent to it, but it also is very bitter. So you want to be careful. I had a teaspoon of seeds. I'll probably only put half of this powder in just to make sure I don't overpower the dish. And then I've got some black mustard seeds that have been toasted. You could either put those in whole or you could grind them up a bit. They grind very easily. We don't actually know where you can get a mortar and pestle exactly like this. Nelson thinks that you can get it, that he got this one at Fiesta Market a long time ago, but we haven't been able to find one there since, so. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. I'm gonna put this on pause for just a second, my sauté, and slice up the sweet potato. So, however you want to cube up your sweet potato, I like to do bite-sized pieces. And the sweet potato will only take about 5, maybe 8 minutes to soften in the curry. And just before we add in the sweet potato and the chickpeas and some of these other ingredients, one important ingredient I forgot to mention earlier is coconut milk. You could make this with more tomato and leave the coconut milk out if you prefer more of a summertime tomatoey flavor, but I really enjoy it with creamy coconut milk in it. Okay, we have a nice large sweet potato here, so we've got probably about 2.5 to 3 cups of sweet potato. So now I'm going to add in about a half teaspoon of the fenugreek seeds and about a half teaspoon of the mustard seeds that were ground. And I'm going to really let that infuse into the oil and the onions. Turn it on very low. And then we've got coriander, about 1.5 teaspoons of coriander, about 1 teaspoon of cumin, and about a 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric. I think I wrote 1 teaspoon in the comments yesterday, but I just want to be cautious not to over season everything. This is the extra fenugreek. Smells a little bit like coriander just now when I was putting it in. And then we've got our curry leaves. Sometimes I chop these up, sometimes I leave them whole. Maybe about 5. They're not very strong. You can use a couple of bay leaves if you don't have curry leaves. They have a different flavor, but they're both typical to use in Indian cooking, and you can't go wrong either one. I'm just making sure there's no hard little pieces on the curry leaves. I think I'll snip off the little petiole. That's good. You can use those curry leaves for a lot of things besides putting them in curry. You can put them in rice. I don't know, they just add a really nice aromatic flavor. Or maybe umami flavor, and they have an aromatic scent to them. Okay, so I put the sweet potatoes in along with all of the spices. Now I think I will add the tomato sauce. This is just some pureed some tomato puree. I'm going to put a little bit more, maybe about 3 tablespoons. I had some diced tomatoes in a can that I just put in the blender. You could also add some fresh chopped tomatoes, like maybe 1 whole Roma tomato that's been seeded. Just chop that up and put it in. Or maybe a half tablespoon of tomato paste with a little bit of water would be a good substitute. Then we'll add the chickpeas. And all of the flavors are starting to blend together. I can really smell the garlic and the ginger and the fenugreek. I actually am going to need a little bit of help getting some cilantro for the very end. Would you be able to get some for me from the plant outside that has where the okra is? Just like maybe 2 or 3 stems would probably be fine. So something that I didn't mention before, I'm going to season this with maybe a teaspoon and a half of salt, and we'll see if we need any more after that. But something I didn't mention is that I usually garnish the final product with cilantro. Let's put in a can of coconut milk. This is kind of the liquidy part at the bottom. We are probably going to add that, but I'm just going to hold back on it while this simmers and see if it needs a little bit more liquid. Something else that you can do if your curry is too thin by the end when you want to serve it, you could stir in a little bit of coconut flour, maybe up to a tablespoon. I would start with a teaspoon and then go to 2 teaspoons if you need more. And just stir it in while you're simmering the curry right before you serve it. And that's a nice thickener for the curry if you need one. I don't know that we'll actually need one since I held back on some of this coconut liquid. Coconut milk liquid, I should say. Thank you. There's cilantro. So if you live in the South like we do, you can grow cilantro all winter long, which is one of my favorite herbs. And it didn't used to be. It still does taste like soap to me a lot of times, but I like the flavor. There's so many more flavors besides that soapy flavor that I've gotten beyond that debilitating genetic trait that they say it's a genetic trait if cilantro tastes like soap. I used to not like it, but I've eaten it so much in so many dishes over the past 25 years that now I love it. So it's interesting. Don't give up hope. I always try to tell people not to give up hope with cilantro because I'm living proof. You can go from not being able to eat it to loving it. Okay. Slide everything over. I'm going to do this. Okay, so if you happen to be on this live version of our show today, let me know if you have any questions about curry or about beans. We're going to simmer this for about 5 more minutes because we want those sweet potatoes to fully cook. We don't want the chickpeas to get mushy, so we're not going to simmer it at a high boil. It's going to be very low simmer like that, and I'm going to keep the lid on so that all the steam stays in there. We are cooking some basmati rice right now. I can actually show you how it looks in just a moment. But if you want to make some basmati rice to go along with this, you can just make a simple rice, or you could get a little bit fancier by putting something like a cinnamon stick, a sprinkle of coriander seeds. You could even put a little bit of shredded coconut in your rice. There's a lot of things you can do to kind of jazz up the rice. Black peppercorns are really good in rice as well. Curry leaves are another thing that you could put in your rice.
Onions.
Yeah, you could put onions too. Some people put saffron in their rice. You don't really need a saffron rice to go along with the curry though, because the curry's very strong on its own. So we'll see how this came out. This was rinsed and then steamed for about, oh, it looks really good. Steamed for about 10 minutes. You know, bring it up to a boil and then put the lid on and then turn it down as low as it will go and let it cook for 10 minutes and then keep the lid on for another 20 to 30 minutes because it will continue to cook. If you lift the lid off immediately from rice after it's done with the initial 10 minutes of cooking, you'll let all the steam out, all the heat out, and it's not gonna, it will end up with unevenly cooked rice. So to get evenly cooked rice, you want to keep the lid on before you fluff it up like this for at least 15 to 20 minutes. Let's see. Just gonna peek in there. Looks really good. Smells really good. So for International Bean Day tomorrow, I think what I'm gonna do is make some pinto beans. Usually I have a stockpile of pinto beans in my freezer, and we can just take out a bag at a time and use them for making quick tacos in the morning or nachos, anything that we want to make with pinto beans. And I've been out of pinto beans for probably 2 weeks or so, and it's been really sad. So tomorrow, I think that would be a nice thing to do, is actually soak some pinto beans. I have to buy them from the store today because I've been out of them. And then, make those, and we'll have them in the freezer for weeks to come. I like to make about 2 to 3 pounds of dry beans at a time, which seems like a ridiculous amount. But we go through probably 1 or 2 quart-sized bags a week. And if we're making a soup out of something like white beans or chickpeas or a curry like this, we might go through 1 to 2 bags in a recipe at least. So that would be fun. Let me see if it looks like we might be able to serve this yet. So you saw that the longest part of making this curry was making those onions. It is simmering pretty hard, isn't it? Turn that down a little bit. I think what I'll do is our sweet potatoes need a little bit longer. I'm going to taste it though for seasoning. See if it needs any more spices or if it needs any more salt, this would be a good time to add that. Actually, that sweet potato was just about right and has plenty of salt. I might have added more than I usually do. I think my chickpeas were well salted, so that might have been why I probably only needed a teaspoon instead of a teaspoon and a half of salt. That is really delicious. I feel like it needs just a little bit of sour, so either a squeeze of lemon or a little bit more tomato would give it a little bit more balance. You want to not just have a salty curry, but you want it to have some salty, some bitter. So we had the fenugreek seeds and the cumin and the mustard seeds and the curry leaves all have bitter flavor. So you want to have some sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and pungent. Astringent is kind of in the sweet potatoes and chickpeas. It's not really a taste as much as it is a quality. Hi, Ginger Snap. I don't think that he likes curry, but he does love food. He is a food lover. We found out that he especially likes croissant, French croissant. So we had some in a box on the table, and he got into them one night. Didn't eat too much of it, but he was motivated enough to figure out how to get into that box. Okay, I think it's ready. It'll taste better with a little bit of that extra tomato sauce. I might want to even serve it with a squeeze of lemon or lime at the table. And I'm going to turn this off. Add a little bit of cilantro. You could add some baby spinach at this point, right at the end, so that you don't overcook it, or some chopped kale that's been destemmed. That would be nice to add a green color to this. Now, cover up some of the drips there. At long last, we can serve up the curry. Now, should I put the rice on the side or on the bottom, Nelson? What do you think?
I would go on the side.
Side? Okay. Nelson worked at an Indian restaurant. Was it just one? One in Cleveland?
Yeah.
A long time ago, and he still remembers a lot of things from that restaurant. A lot of techniques for making the food, and has a lot of stories from the kitchen.
Crazy
Sadistic chef that liked to make things extra spicy for people that asked for mild and then laugh about it. Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, so we'll probably add for our picture later, we'll add a little bit of cilantro sprigs there. But I hope you enjoy making this as much as I did. I'm going to revise the recipe a little bit just to perfect it with the amount of spices and tomatoes, and I'll make sure I've at least have that in the comments by the end of the day, and then eventually I'll have a nice blog post that I'll send out to all the subscribers. So make sure that you sign up for my newsletter if you haven't been getting it, or maybe you haven't been getting it lately. Go ahead and sign up again. You just go to cookloveheal.com/subscribe, And I'll send out a newsletter every couple weeks with any recipes that I've posted on my blog and any events that are coming up. Sometimes I have an online event. And of course, I always have these Wednesday events. And I'll just, kind of keep you updated on what's going on. And I'd love to hear from all of you as well. I'd love when people hit the reply button from my newsletters. It comes straight to me and we can have a conversation about what's going on in your life. That's one of the most important things to me, is getting to know all of you. So thank you for watching today. And I hope you enjoy your International Bean Day tomorrow. And I don't know if it's International or National Bean Day. I have to check on that. But enjoy your curry, and we'll see you here next week for another healthy and delicious recipe. Take care.